What's up guys, Ivan Carranza here, and today we're gonna set up one of my basses. My Dingwall Super J has super dead strings and it's time for a change, so I figured I would show you guys the process of how I set up my basses. This is something that has been requested by the viewers, that I show you how I do this kind of thing. But before we start, let me tell you that all that I cover here, or let's say maybe 90% of the things that I cover here, are actually shown on a video tutorial series by Dingwall Guitars that was filmed with Sheldon Dingwall and Felipe, the social media guy of Dingwall Guitars. They have a series of tutorials showing how to adjust the truss rod, how to adjust the bridge, how to set up the neck relief, the nut filing, etc, etc, and so on. So they cover a lot of topics on that video series. I'm going to put those videos in the description down below for you to check out. So please go and watch those first and come back here, or watch them after this video. So let's jump to what I'm going to use for the setup, and I'm going to talk to you about the process. So here is my Dingwall Super J. The strings, like I said, are pretty dead. I've used them for several months and for several gigs and also to practice, so they are really dead. They sound like flat ones, so I'm going to change the strings. What we're going to use here is, of course, a new set of strings. These are Dingwall nickel medium scale strings that I used on my Dingwall basses. We are going to use some F1 oil to condition the fretboard, and with this you can either use a piece of cloth. This is a piece of a t-shirt, an old t-shirt that I cut, or some microfiber cloth. This came with the fast fret, so you can use this. What's important is that it's clean and not wet. We're going to use a fret polisher. This is not steel wool, this is a difference. And this is from, or I got this tip from my friend Peter, because he sort of bullied me because I was not cleaning the frets of my basses properly. So he definitely recommended me to get these and use them on every string change. I'm going to show you how to do it. Then, of course, some setup tools to adjust the different kind of things. So these are, of course, hex key or Allen wrenches, one Dunlop 0.38 millimeters, a measuring ruler, and for this, the cool thing about this one, I think this is a, what is this, a Music Nomad string action gauge. The cool thing about this one is that it has string height in millimeters and centimeters, and also in 64ths. So we can use that as a guide to set everything up. Then we're going to use two capos or capos, and well, string cutter and string unwinder. So some tools to do the process. So the first thing that I'm going to do is take off the strings of the bass and then apply the fretboard conditioner and also clean the frets. So most likely I'm going to start by polishing the frets a bit before I apply the conditioner. Now here we have, of course, the bass. I would recommend doing this if you have a workbench or a kitchen table with plenty of space. I don't, so I'm going to do this on my bed. But the string unwinder is great for this. It saves a lot of time. I think this is by Dunlop. I don't know how expensive it is, but it just saves time to put and take out the strings. Now, if you have also a fan fret bass and you take out the strings for the first time, you might notice, like for example in here, I hope the camera picks that up, it's kind of hard. There's some wear here, and this bass is fairly new, I got it last year. But you're gonna notice more fret wear, in quotes, than on a normal parallel fret bass. It's not actually bad, it's normal, it's going to happen, but it's not actual wear, it just looks like that. This question has been asked a million times on the Dingwall Talk Bass forum and also on Facebook and so on, so there's nothing to worry about that. Unless you really are eating the fret down, that is becoming unplayable, but if it's just some cosmetic wear, you don't really have to worry too much. We're going to use a fret polisher, like I said, and the thing here, the trick, is to not press too hard against the fret while you're doing this, because otherwise you're going to level the fret. So you just want to pass it and press slightly to take out all the grime, the dirt that has been building up there, and to make it shiny again. So let's do this. I'm just holding the neck here to avoid it moving all over the place, and lightly passing the fret polisher on the fret. Like I said, you don't want to do this too hard. It's just a little bit of pressure to clean up the frets. And of course you want to go down the entire fretboard. Now, as a bonus, if in case your bass is full of fingerprints or a lot of, dust or sweat in the body or somewhere, or the pickups, for example, you can use some, polisher cleaner as well. You just grab a cloth, spray it, and buff it out. This is Dunlop 65 formula. I have no affiliation with Dunlop. I just have this. This lasts a long time, and the bottles are pretty cheap. So grab yourself some of these kind of like cleaning products, and you're good to go for a long time. So we're gonna do it. My pickup covers are pretty dirty because I sweat a lot, so all the dirt and finger pieces, the skin gets all in there. So I'm just gonna clean them before I do the rest. So it says spray 1 or 2 pumps on a clean cloth and then use it on the affected area. Now for the fretboard conditioner, it says that's pretty powerful. So you shake the bottle and then put a little drop on a piece of cloth and then rub that in the fingerboard or whatever you want to put it. You can also put it on the neck. So we're going to put a little drop in this portion of the shirt, and we're going to start applying it here. And you can clearly see, let me take this. It might be hard to pick up from the light, but you can see that this area, the first fret, is a bit more of a different color. And now if I put it on the second fret, you can notice it as well. It's a little bit more, it pops up, the wood, the grain pops up a little more. That's the liquid or the oil going in there. So I'm going to apply this across all the fretboard. Now after applying the oil, the fingerboard is a bit oily. So I'm going to let it sit for a few minutes, not too long, and then grab another piece of cloth and try to get the excess out to avoid getting, too greasy when I put the new strings. So just let it sit a couple of minutes, 1 or 2, and then we're gonna buff it out. All right, so I've buffed out the excess of oil and I'm about to put the new strings. Now, one thing that I need to mention, and this is also mentioned on the videos by Sheldon, and that is if the knot on your bass is not cut properly, so it's either too short or too high, unless you're experienced doing this kind of things, I would recommend getting that to a tech, because one passing too much can definitely ruin the knot of the height of your knot. And if you're going to a larger gauge of strings, for example, and you go and do say, I'm gonna do it on my own, and you just file it, you can ruin the knot of your bass, and it's gonna ruin your entire setup. So I would definitely recommend taking it to a tech if you're not skilled. I am not skilled, so I do not touch the knot of my bass. So I'm just gonna put the new strings on it. These are, like I said, Dingwall nickel strings. I'm a big nickel guy. For a while I played stainless steel strings because of the clarity and of course the Marcus Miller tone, which I think we all like. But I noticed that I didn't really like the roughness of them. Sliding up and down the neck was kind of annoying. I kill strings super quickly anyway, so that's extra brightness that those strings usually have didn't really work for me too much. And I noticed, and this is coming from, let's say, years of playing experience and also learning a bit more about production, is that I care more about the mids than those upper top end highs. So nickel strings have plenty of highs and clarity for my needs, and they allow me to move around faster across the fretboard. If you have a nickel allergy, of course, this is a problem. I know some people that do, but I prefer nickel strings. This is, of course, also going to vary by brand, but some of my favorite strings other than Dingwall strings are DR Pure Blues, great strings. D'Addario NYXL, also really cool strings. Also the regular D'Addario EXL nickel strings, I really like them as well. And recently I played a set of Ernie Ball regular slinkies, which felt also pretty good on a bass that I played briefly. So that's also pretty cool as well, I guess. But I use the Dingwall strings on my basses, so let's take a look at that. Now, what I like to do with the tuning pegs and also how much I cut of the string is that I measure 1.5 tuning pegs from the one that I'm going to insert the string in or into. So in the case of the E string right here, I would measure 1 to the A and the half of the next one, so right here. And then there I bend the string like that, so we have a 90-degree angle like this. This is even more important for strings, and actually mandatory for strings that are round core. I'm not exactly sure which core the Dingwall strings have. I've just gotten a habit of doing this for all the strings. But if you have strings with a round core, you definitely need to do this. Otherwise, you're gonna mess up the core of the string and it's not gonna intonate properly and it's not gonna tune properly. Now, if you have strings with a hex core, which is the majority of strings though, you don't really need to worry about this, but I think it's always good to do. Now, after I've measured and made that 90-degree angle, what I do is, and this applies to my body dimensions, maybe you find some other reference, but what I do is I measure one finger joint, like the top portion of my finger, and I know that there is the point where I'm going to cut the string, because that is exactly the depth or length that the string goes into the tuning peg. It's one finger joint, 1.5 more or less, depending also on which string, but that is a good reference for me to know where to cut the string. So we're gonna grab our string cutter and measure the string, and then we cut. It's always better to cut and have a bit extra and have a bit too less of string, just in case, letting you guys know. And what we want to achieve generally is that the string does not overlap in twists or turns. So the biggest portion of the string, so the one that goes, all the way into the bass, should be on the bottom portion of the tuning peg, and then it wraps around. I've seen some basses with strings overlapping all over the place, and that affects your tuning stability. So we do not want that to happen. So I'm gonna make sure, I'm gonna press here while I'm tuning the string and wrapping the string so that the string stays in the bottom and not wrapping around or on top of the other portion of the string. And ideally, as you can see here, I am aiming to 2 to 1.5 string wraps around the tuning post. And then we just repeat the process for the rest of the strings. Okay, so the bass has all the strings. It sounds spanky, feels good. A cool thing to do when you've already changed the strings to help you maintain intonation and tuning stability in general is to press behind lightly and in front of the bridge saddle. This is going to make the string angle a bit stronger and will help with tuning stability. Okay, now that we've got the strings, we've tuned the bass, we've done that little trick of the bridge saddles, the next step is to check the truss rod and check the relief of the neck. For this, we're going to need the 2 capos or capos and that Dunlop 38mm pick. what we're gonna do is put the first capo or cable on the first fret, like this pretty much. And the second one, we're going to put as close to the body as we can. So I'm gonna try to aim to placing it right here at the edge of the bass. So there we go. I think we're good there. Now, what this is going to create is a straight edge for strings. So the strings are super straight, and this is going to allow me to check the relief of the neck. You can, of course, use a measuring engineering rule if you have that. I don't have that, but what Dingwall recommends is to use the Dunlop 38mm pick. I'm going to show you how to do this. What we want to do is that we want to slide the pick between the string and the 7th fret, and the pick should not push the string out of the way. That's what we are aiming to do. So if I do this, right now we're pretty much good. I don't need to adjust anything. But if I was to be pushing the fret or the string, sorry, too much, I would need to loosen the truss rod to increase the relief. If there was too much space, I would need to tighten the truss rod. To adjust the truss rod, you're gonna use the correct hex or wrench key or Allen wrench key. For Dingwall basses, that's the one that's yellow. Most likely your bass came with a key that's appropriate for the truss rod. If you use the wrong one, you might strip the nut of the truss rod, which is not good. So get one that is in the right size. The general principle is the following. Looking from the headstock down, or in case if your truss rod comes from the body, then from the body upwards, it is righty-tighty, lefty-loosey. So if you want to tighten the truss rod, I would put the key there and then turn it to the right. If I would like to loosen it, I would turn it to the left. The same applies if I put the bass, let's say, here. I put the bass like this, then I would put the key and then turn it to the right to tighten it, turn it to the left to loosen it. If it was the body, or the truss rod axis, if it was here, you would do the same movement. It would be to the right to tighten it, to the left to loosen it. Just important to keep in mind, righty-tighty, lefty-loosey. Now, after we've done the truss rod adjustment, I'm going to check the bridge height. And like I said, I got some measurements from Dingwall, which I'm gonna put here on the screen in a second. And we're gonna use the measuring ruler from, Music Nomad to check that. From the email that I got, they say that they adjust the string height by measuring 4/64 on the G string, which is 1.58 millimeters, measured from the top of the fret to the bottom of the string on the 12th fret. Then for the D string is 4.5/64, the A is 5/64, sorry, and the E is 5.5/64. So it always increases by 0.5/64, which equates in metric to, for the G, 1.58 millimeters, 1.76 millimeters, 1.98, more likely 2 millimeters, and E, 2.18 millimeters. Those are the measurements. Now they recommend to set the G and A first because those are round dead-on measurements, so 4/64 and 5/64, and then adjust the other ones by feel, and you'll land most likely on those 4.5 or 5.5/64. So we're gonna do that right now. I'm gonna measure, and hopefully I can capture this on camera properly because it's hard to film and look at the height and so on. This might be a bit tricky to do on camera because it's hard to really get the measurement shown on the screen while I'm using the measurement ruler, but essentially you want to put the measurement ruler on the 12th fret, like this, on top of the frets, and then use, of course, these measurements as a guide. Now, for the G string, we are pretty much dead on. Let me try to see if I can zoom in. You can see there is subtle, but you can see that we are pretty good on 4/64. I think I could even go a tiny bit lower, but I think I'm good with the string height right now. I don't think I need to go lower than it currently is. Now for the A string, it should be 5/64. Let me see if I can capture this. Really hard to get an angle here. Pretty much 5/64. Also here, I think I could go a tiny bit lower. It's really hard to film this. But we're pretty much there. I think I could go a tiny bit lower, but I think we're good. And then we need to measure, I think we can lower the E string here, because I am in fact sitting at 6/64 and we need to be a bit lower. All right guys, so I just finished doing the setup. I did loosen the truss rod just a smidge, like really of a turn, like minimal, because I noticed that it was a tiny bit too flat, and I did mess around a little bit with the E string, and also, I mean, these adjustments are really tiny. Like I'm just doing like a of an adjustment, and it does make a difference. So you don't always need to go like a full-on quarter turn of a wrench or something to make a big impact. Sheldon recommends, if you've watched his videos, to document every time you turn a wrench or adjust a screw or something, so that's always helpful. The only thing missing right now is to do the intonation at the bridge. That is something that takes time and it's pretty tedious, because you need to move the saddle. First of all, you need to detune, move the saddle, retune, check the tuning, and then do the process several times until you've landed correctly on the spot. Essentially what you want to do, and I have a video about this I think on my channel, which is, the video is kind of old I think. I'm going to look for it, try to put it in the description, but essentially what you want to do is match the tuning of your open string to the 12th fret harmonic. And to do that, you're going to either move the saddles of the bridge forward or backwards to make the scale length the actual scale that it should be. So you play your open string with a tuner, and then you play the harmonic of the 12th fret, and then you press on the 12th fret, and both pitches should match. So both should be in tune. If the fretted note is sharper or flatter than the harmonic, you're going to need to adjust the bridge saddle. It is important to do because it's also going to affect your playability, because if it's not right, essentially you have a string that's not the right scale length, and it's not only going to affect your intonation, but also how the string is going to feel. It might feel a bit tighter or a bit more loose compared to the other ones, so that is also going to affect the playability of your bass. I hope this video was helpful for you guys. I hope you learned something from it. I hope it was educational. So let me know in the comments, how often do you actually set up your instruments and how do you do it? Thank you guys for watching. Let me know what you think in the comments, and I'll catch you guys on the next one. Take care.